The Super Bowl, it was tough. Did you feel like it was a weird kinda like a weird vibe in the Super Bowl where it kinda I don't know if it's the Las Vegas arena where it's kinda just like I don't know. It was a little bit deflated. The first half, it wasn't like the Super Bowl where the Rams and the Bengals felt like a spectacle. Even the Eagles and the Chiefs felt like a spectacle so far as well, like in those
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, I felt the same. Like I felt like there was something missing, and I felt like part of it could be Vegas because we mentioned it throughout the game. It felt like throughout this whole time, we're like, it feels like this is too obvious for it to not be the Chiefs.
Yeah.
This makes too much sense for NFL history and what the Vegas might want as well. And then it also felt like the fans there didn't really know what teams they were rooting for. It felt like they were booing both teams at certain points.
Yeah.
And then it just felt like the magic of the Super Bowl, which we usually see, even if it was a team that you see there all the time, like the Patriots or the Chiefs. Even last year, we had the Kelsey Bowl. The
Yeah.
year before that, we saw the Rams and the Bengals, two teams who were trying to get over the hump. Joe Burrow emerging as a superstar, and then obviously Matthew Stafford. I felt like this year there wasn't really any magic. It wasn't quite to the level as usual.
You know who hurt that magic though, and you know who kind of added to the aura of the Super Bowl kind of being taken down a notch, and I'm not blaming Taylor Swift because her 90 seconds of screen time. Wow, I'm so offended that Taylor Swift is on screen with Ice Spice and Donald Glover behind her and the entire posse in that booth, but like Tony Romo. Tony Romo, you texted me at one point during this game. You're like, I wish I could hog tie Tony Romo like Red Dead Redemption and drag him through town like Arthur Morgan would. If you played Red Dead Redemption, it's that if you know, you know. But Tony Romo, it seems like the guy just picks a word and he's like, yeah, I'm going to use that word the entire game and then repeat it every single time a play happens. He's like, wow, Brock Purdy, spatial awareness. And then Patrick Mahomes, look at him, recognize the leverage on this team. And then suddenly I'm a defensive coordinator. They should have played man on this team on this play, even though they did play man on that play. And it's like Tony Romo is a absolute mess. He had a pretty good first year as a commentator, and it's just been downhill from there. And if we're gonna hold players accountable to their performance, we're gonna talk about players choking. It's like, can we talk about Tony Romo choking? And then at some points it was even Jim Nantz. He's like, if you're wondering, this isn't a time to kick the field goal. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure we were all wondering that, Jim Nantz. Like, we all know that. But like, it felt like the commentators just added to that aura. And then as soon as I turned the game on and remembered it was on CBS, I was like, oh, God, Tony Romo, Patrick Mahomes. He's just going to be talking about how the 49ers, like, oh, well, are they ready for Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes? And I get it with Patty. He does the same thing with Josh Allen, though, but just a poor commentating performance all around. It just made me so excited for Tom Brady. And even with someone like Collinsworth, who gets a lot of grief, it's like at least he has that nice Southern hospitality, that nice Southern charm where he seems like he's enjoying himself. You're a little bit charmed by Chris Collinsworth, where Tony Romo, he's the guy doing the Skechers ad.
Yeah. I've always felt like with Tony Romo, I don't know if it's the way he talks, doing his little, hey, Jim. That's why every time I hear him, he sounds like he's like as if you're starting like a lawnmower or something. And for me, like throughout this entire game, he was just saying nonsense throughout this entire game. And I'm not here to like Tony Romo, the person, like say he would about his career or whatever. But as far as an announcer, I felt like he didn't come in prepared either, because I felt like between them calling out play calls that were complete nonsense, whether it was stating the obvious, like, hey, they're down by 10 points, they don't want a field goal, shit like that, like just making the most awkward play calls. I wasn't a fan of what I saw from Tony Romo. Tony Romo of them all, definitely not my favorite. I think Collinsworth, he has a little bit of corniness, but it's almost like it's like heartwarming in a way because he's so iconic. Collinsworth has been there for forever. And then obviously we have like the Greg Olsons of the world, who I think is fantastic. You have Al Michaels, his resume speaks for himself. And then for Tony Romo, I think the problem and his thing that he's often criticized of, and same with Collinsworth, is the glaze. And with Patrick Mahomes, it's kind of hard not to. He did make some great plays, but Tony Romo takes it to a level where it makes you hate the player almost. And he does the same thing with Josh Allen. And I love Josh Allen as well. And I think that, like, you want to glaze the great players, that's fine, but tone it down. Like, at the end of the day, you are an announcer. You're supposed to be impartial. And it just gets really disgraceful at certain points. And I think that this call, this announcement job, we talk about the hollow feeling of this Super Bowl, and I
Yeah.
feel like he's part to blame.
Yeah, he's definitely part to blame, and it seems like he's living his career through Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Like he's like, yeah, he like has some revisionist history where it's like, I was this type of player too, and he's almost living his career moments that he never had through the great players that are playing in the NFL right now.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of a hollow feeling with Tony Romo, and the Super Bowl was kind of a massive letdown, and it's kind of disappointing when every time you turn it on, you're like bummed out by the commentators.